Welcome to The Dead Life. I've been fortunate enough to have some amazing guests on my show whose interviews are paving the way to my milestone 100th episode. Last week, you heard from Father Nathan Castle, who returned to the show for episode number 98. This week, you'll be hearing from one of your favorite guests, my in-house astrologer extraordinaire, Tom McMullan. Tom is episode number 99. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison. Make sure my name is spelled right, and I do not DM people for readings. That's a scammer. You can see what I'm up to on my Facebook fan page. You can binge on my YouTube videos, and you can see me live in October in Denver, Colorado, Chicago, Illinois, and Irvine, California. In 2023, I'll be coming to Dallas, Texas, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Nashville, Tennessee. For more information, go to AllisonDubois.com. Well, Tom, welcome back.
Thank you, Allison. It's been a while.
It feels like it's been forever.
It has, feeling that way. Absolutely.
I know. I needed my Tom fix.
I'm number 99. I know who 100 is.
God.
It's the one. Yeah, right. No, it's the one with the sexy voice.
I couldn't make the one with the sexy voice number 100 because it would look totally rigged since I'm married to him.
Oh, it's not rigged. Okay.
He was number 96 or 7.
Funny.
Yeah. So over the last 2 years, you've been on The Dead Life quite a bit.
Right.
But I think the most emotional time for me was in 2020 when the pandemic hit and we were trying to cover astrological projections for 3-month periods of time throughout the year in order to keep people's morale up.
Sure.
There was a lot of pressure then, wasn't there?
Well, the problem was there were so many unknowns. And that's when, you and I were very busy because people, as I said, during that period where everything shut down, people were like stuck with themselves and got quiet and not distracted by their outside world. So we started looking at our life and ourselves very differently.
And I was actually reading a lot of suicides at that time, which is why I really had wanted to do those segments to keep people from getting into that headspace.
Yes.
Being isolated by themselves. And some people look within and look at their life and they don't like what they see and they don't know how to fix it.
And that's just it. The powerlessness we feel at times in our life and then things that we get distracted by that keep us going.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden either you're changing your life or you're hitting the bottle,
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's funny how people forget so quickly because it was only 2 years ago, but remember walking outside and seeing the trash cans full of wine bottles for everybody up and down the street. I don't think Recycle's ever been so happy.
Well, everyone gained 20 pounds. And,
I know, and nobody cared.
No, no one saw them.
That's true. It was kind of a beautiful thing in that I did see some gifts in that people were forced to be introspective, myself included.
Right. And
interestingly enough, it put some people on different professional paths than they
different
had
relationships.
Been. Yeah, different. Oh, yeah, that ended a lot of marriages.
Yes, yeah,
and it caused a lot of beautiful weddings and babies.
Well, we had to learn to do things very, very differently.
Yes,
and that alone is challenging when everyone's used to traditions and doing things the way they've always been. So, maybe it helped us get used to the fact that we try new things.
And I think the trick from then to now, remember telling yourself you weren't going to go back to the way things were before the pandemic, and you weren't going to spread yourself as thin.
Right.
How many people made that promise to themselves and were able to find the balance? I
did.
Yeah, me too.
You did too, yes.
Me too.
We talked about it. We talked about looking at our lives, about how much we're taking on and how much we need to sort of organize and manage our lives better because being people that are sort of taking care of other people in our profession.
Yeah.
We have a sense of calling or almost an obligation beyond ourselves to do it. And then we don't pay attention to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we had to learn to do that. And it made me stronger.
No, you seem happier, actually.
Well, my life's quieter and more focused.
Yes.
And I'm being all fire and air in my nature. It's easy for me to be distracted or to keep busy. And
I know, Tom.
I know. And so I've learned to focus that energy more into my work and my focus in my own life. And it's made a difference. And I moved in the middle of all of that. And the move was about simplifying on top of it. So I didn't feel burdened by a lot of the responsibilities I had by sort of keeping my life simpler.
That was one of the most fire sign moves I've ever seen you make. You went and looked at that house, came over, and you're like, I bought a house.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
You told your partner, by the way, I bought a house.
Yeah.
That was awesome, though. I like to see the fire come out in you.
Well, I had been contemplating it for about a year.
Right.
And so I just finally acted on it right before Thanksgiving of 19.
Yeah.
And it was a house that was going to be built anyway.
Yeah.
And then I just did it, not realizing, well, how will I sell my house? Where will I go in the interim? How will this happen? And it just all happened.
It worked out.
Yes, it did.
So that was great. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't overextend myself socially. Yeah. So work-wise, you keep telling me, don't overextend yourself. Yes. And you keep giving me that heads up. Socially, I have not gone back to the way things were before. I can't do that. It just doesn't even matter. I don't know about my listeners, but I came out of the pandemic hundreds of pounds lighter because you lose friends.
Well, your friends become more focused on the ones that really are your friends.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's so much less energy when you stop pretending it's a friendship just because you go to dinner from time to time. It's
it is true.
You
but
redefined
also,
it.
It gave you an excuse to be more Aquarian than you naturally are, is people annoy you anyway. So
every Aquarian I've talked to about the pandemic says they actually found it very peaceful and enjoyed it very much. Just going through it personally, not the suffering other people went through, but personally enjoyed their position through that pandemic and the introspection.
Well, the two signs that would be the two self-sufficient signs. One's Aquarian, the other's Taurus. Taurus is comfortable by itself. So it wasn't like, no, I'm good. Just bring more food.
Yeah. As long as I got to see you and the kids, I was like, great, that works for me. So we've also gotten to do my karma series where we both read people who were, it's sort of a crossroads, but really it was people who had very complicated patterns in their life of repeating a karmic cycle.
Right.
And you looked in their chart to tell them about that. Did you enjoy doing that?
Well, karma is one of the main things of my readings anyway, is to tell you what you bring in from the past that was your focus. And we repeat it when we come back in. So we spend a good, 20, 30, 40 years, depending on where you are in it, still doing it because it's all unconscious.
Right.
And then when I bring it up and say, here's a pattern where your whole life has been based on, say, religion was one karmic one we did, and everything was about religion. And, and so going through the fact that you're no longer a strict religion that you were, but you're still looking for a religion,
Right.
And so what are you really looking for? And is it a dogma or is it a spiritual essence? And everybody's kind of having that anyway, but some are really focused on it when their past life was really based in dogma.
And I liked reading the person first and getting my take, and then you had your take through your astrology, your astrological reading, and just they always overlapped.
They do.
The information always overlapped. And I just found that really fascinating, how you can get messages and energy in two different sort of ways, but with the same intention.
You and I've always said that, we're sort of vehicles for spirit. So, we're channeling essentially through the way you do it or the way I do it.
Right.
And we cross paths in the information. It's like spirit screaming at you.
Yeah.
Trying to wake you up. But people come to us to be woken up, or they're ready to be awake.
Most of them.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I would say the majority are, and those that don't, whether they get much out of the reading or they get it later, you don't know, but that's not up to us to determine.
We can only give them the tools.
Yeah, I say, my readings, my ultimate goal is to validate you in your life,
right?
By giving you back to why your life looks the way it does.
But they have to put the action into it to bring.
And then I'll give you
change.
permission, but you have to do the work.
Right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. So, I thought it was fun asking you to do something that was so me. I wanted you to run the serial killers Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer's charts, and I know that was stomach turning for both of us, actually, because I had to go through and refresh myself on the cases, and I get into the energy and pulled into the victim, so it's not pretty or pleasant. But I found it fascinating when you would go through their charts and explain that they could take this higher road, go with a higher vibration of that energy or a lower vibration. And obviously they chose the lower vibrations, but how you could read a chart and interpret it in sort of different stories, depending on what road they take.
Well, and again, there were a lot of similarities, interestingly enough, between those that take very dark paths to those that take very light paths and healing paths, because our whole dynamic in this world is to construct or destroy. And so those who may destroy self or may destroy others is that dark energy. We ourselves wake up every day with the ability to make destructive choices. If we're not happy here, we find means of escapes. So means of escape are constantly coming home and drinking too much and not participating in life because you don't want to be here.
Or tearing something down because you're angry.
Exactly. Or project. Well, that's the projection of the destruction.
Sure.
But then a lot of the signatures and symbols are those who come either to serve or suffer. And those who come in, and you come in with that signature, you know, there's a signature in one's chart to say, I'm here to only serve or suffer. And though I get most of my readings are the ones that really want to serve and trying to find the modality or medium of which they're trying to serve through. But at the same time, those that want to suffer within themselves and everyone around them.
Yes. And I've noticed that. I had somebody, and it's debatable. Everybody has different takes, but this is how I see it. They brought up sort of the people who shoot up schools, which is very intense. And she wanted to know why they do that. And I said to her, I said, if you can wrap your mind around this, it really comes down to somebody that is just void of joy, void of any sort of sense of self. They feel invisible. They see all of these other kids around them who are happy and loved and lively, and they resent that because they aren't that energy. And this goes into people who abduct children. This goes in many different directions, but it comes down to energy that wants to destroy something because it can't be that. But there's another layer on it where they see all the people that love that person and will remember them. And this person that's void of happiness and a story, like a real family story to them of love, they want to also be remembered. They're afraid of being forgotten.
So they do horrific.
So they do something horrific to be remembered because as an individual, they feel like nothing and nobody cares anyways, and nobody's going to remember me. And they see it as a way of almost binding themselves to the victims in their story. And so you have to care. And in reality, once the people cross, they are in a completely different energy arena than the victims. They will never be around them.
Yeah, thank God.
Right, absolutely.
Literally, thank God. But, you know, it's no different in terms of wanting to understand why you're here and have something that makes you feel special while you're here.
Right.
So those who find their purpose, their calling, their desire and manifest it, that it isn't from what somebody else told them to be or how to be, but something they created within themselves, are the most creative people on the planet.
Yes.
So whether they're a movie star or a famous painter or dancer or somebody that's doing something in whatever venue it is, it doesn't matter what the form is.
Right.
And then you have someone who doesn't have the ability or the support or encouragement.
They don't have the light
or the light in themselves to do that. So like you said, they take the darkest version of that same story and project it onto, I'm going to be remembered for this.
Well, and you throw some drugs into it and it's a disaster. Yeah. So that's what it can come down to.
Dis-ease.
Right. And so these serial killers like Ted Bundy that he was a sexual deviant, but also domination and wanting to control his victim and wanting to destroy. They really become this. They hunt people. He was such a hunter, and I think he was sad. He had something of Sag,
very strong
in his chart, which is a hunter.
Yes,
and so I thought that was just fascinating. He saw it as no different than going deer hunting. You know. So what did you think when I asked you to do it? Did they give you the willies?
Well, it does anyway, because when I do a chart, I become into that person's energy and become them in their story. And it was all I could do not to go into that place and just look at it as objectively as possible. So I really more analyze those charts rather than do what I normally do with someone's chart when I do a reading. Which I'll spend, when I do a reading, I spend 2 hours reading it like you read a novel and then become that person in the story and then feed it back to you. But I didn't want to do that with these. So you gave me an analysis out. It's like, what are the signatures in astrology, Tom? That kind of make, so that helped.
So you can disconnect from that energy. I get it. We're going to end up doing another one, though, maybe in Scorpio. That's always the right time to do one. But we won't cover them. Obviously, we'll cover somebody new. We're just going to look at people who destroy and their charts. So are there any show topics that you would like to cover or go more in depth into?
Well, there's so many things in my field that we can discuss. Most people look at astrologers as, predicting energy of what's going on and these things. I do that. I will do that today, but it's not my favorite thing to do. It's more about understanding why things are the way they are, why we behave the way we do, what triggers our natures at times. And so one of the things that I like to talk about when someone comes to me at a certain age is, they're 28 to 30. I go, oh, this is a big shift for you. And they go, how do you know that? And I go, well, it's called the Saturn return in astrology. And that is when we go to redo ourselves in our life to another level. We raise into a new structure and get very serious coming out of the 20s and coming really into adulthood and what we're going to move forward in our life. And this is where big things happen, like marriages and babies and changing jobs or starting jobs. And then there's another one at 43, which is the midlife crisis, because yes, in astrology, there's a midlife crisis. And this kind of like happens again, that happened when you were 19 to 23, which is a radicalization, a rebellion against the things that you're doing. You say, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And then we do another change. And then we have a second Saturn return at 58. But that's part of it. But then the other topic I'd like to do is generationally, because the boomers, they shift in their lives and get their story and start figuring out what wasn't working in their karma, usually around late 50s, early 60s. Your generation, the Gen X generation, gets around late 40s, early 50s. And then the millennials tend to be late 30s, early 40s. Now, this is different than the shifts of what we all go through, the periods I just said. Right. But it seems like the understanding of getting our story of our lifetime seems to be happening faster and faster as the generations come in, because evolution, one of the reasons is there's more opportunity as we move forward of information and, options, especially for women.
I think they're more open to hailing to the altar of spirituality as well.
Well, that's
the millennials, moving,
but it all generations seem to be moving from dogma into spiritual understanding. Right. Not leaving God. It's just a different definition or ideal of what God represents in terms of what we're connected in our Creator.
Well, and they're not void people. Their spirituality is still a core of consciousness and awareness and empathy for others. Right. And that's really what it takes to be a good person, is to be able to feel those things.
I do this a lot in readings that are people trying to find, like this is the answer to everything. There is no answer to everything, because there is no end to anything. We're in a constant state of discovery, and that's what spirit is. It's not dormant. It doesn't come to an end. Right. Everything is infinite. God's infinite. Spirituality is the same thing. It's infinitely growing and expanding. We're not going backwards in time, in other words. Yeah. You see, we're not dragging our knuckles on the ground anymore, even though some people seem to be. But
yeah, well, they have bad charts.
But everyone's in a different stage of evolution within their journey. I do readings for old souls, new souls, and everything in between.
Mine's been a constant journey from childhood. And some people seem to have easier charts where...
Yeah, but you're an old soul. Old souls come here with deeper reasons of being here more than they even know. And you and I both found that to be true, because what we're doing even right now isn't something we ever wanted or planned to do. No. And so therefore, we didn't know we had what I'd say a higher calling, because we kind of did all the other stuff in previous lives. And now we're finding not ourselves anymore, but our purpose and ourself and what we're here to give somebody, and not get or not get.
Well, and I think we worked a lot and gave a lot of our energy to our, audience and clients. And I think right now you and I are also trying to stop and enjoy some of what the traveling or people in our lives. Right. And I swear in my 30s, somebody hit a fast forward button and it was just over. And so much content.
Well, that goes faster, Allison. So, I'm in my 60s now and I still feel like 30 was yesterday.
Yes.
So it does. But again, understand this, time does seem to go faster as you get older. That is absolutely the truth. But I can look in the mirror and see an older person, but my soul and my spirit still is much younger.
I think you look handsome still.
But it's energetic. I don't look at the form. I look at the energy behind the form, and sure. I am a youthful spirit.
Yes.
And a light spirit. I'm not a heavy person. I have very, very good sense of as I've gotten older, it's helped objectivity to things.
It's interesting. The eyes truly are the window to the soul. Joe had just looked at a picture of me at 2, and I had big black button eyes. And he said, "You look so innocent." And I said, "Well, it's before life takes a hold of you and you become a jaded adult." Yeah. But it does go faster. And I want to say from a karmic standpoint, I think I must have been around 21 when I made the comment in my mind. An old lady said, "Take a lot of pictures. It goes by fast." She had said it seemed like she was just a little girl. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, how does 80 years just whiz by, But she was right. And, spiritual salute to her. And I did take a lot of pictures, though. I listened to her. Yeah. So that was good. And I always savored everything along the way. And I think you have too.
Well, funny thing is I look at your daughters because they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
And doing readings for them at that age is fun because I sit there and go,
they love that.
They think that, they want information now because they think they're running out of time.
Right.
In their 20s.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait a minute. We thought someone over 30 was old. When in our 20s, we didn't think we were getting old at all.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, what is there something they know we don't know that's coming?
Right.
Like they want to get out of here sooner.
I think with the girls, it's a life path thing as well. I achieved so much by the time I had hit 30, even, that I think they're sort of measuring themselves by what I had done.
Yeah.
At that age.
Yeah, but you're a bad example.
I know. I was an overachiever a little bit.
Well, you're a perfectionist and an overachiever, so.
Yeah, but look at everything I got done. It was so great. I'm so proud of myself. So everybody out there that's done something with your lives, pat yourself on the back. And if you haven't, start now.
Well, and progress happens when you're ready. When you're ready. It's not something that's thrust upon you. It's when you wake up to it yourself and going, I need to move on.
Yeah.
And you need to listen to that voice and stop analyzing your decisions and go, that's what the pandemic did. It made us stop looking at the outside of ourselves and start listening to the inside.
And if people could cut the strings to everything bad that happened in their life to them and blamed everything,
let that ship sail.
Let that energy, they're pulling it along with them like it's some appendage or some part of them, and it's toxic, and you got to cut the strings, leave that in the past. That doesn't define the rest of your life. Don't let it, and move forward. Do something. Make your mark. I want to get high-fived when I die. Don't you? I mean, I want the dead to be like, that was an amazing run. You really, that was great. Here's a drink. That was fantastic. Wow, you must be exhausted. That's the reaction I want. Not, come on in.
Okay. I'll do that for you when you pass. Because I'll go before you. Yes.
I'm hoping.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a fun crowd.
I'll be there. Of course it is.
I know. That's true. Okay. Then we could have happy hour for an eternity. So what do the next few months look like astrologically?
Okay. This is heavy stuff. So here we go into the fall.
Okay, people, I want to say is just a warning out there. If you don't want to know and you live in denial, you might not want to hear this. But I think for anybody that is of a spiritual nature or gets a sense of things, you know what's coming. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I'll start first off with the big thing that's been going on for the year or more, which is Saturn making a hard aspect to Uranus. And Saturn in Aquarius is our government, our traditions, our systems that have always been in place. And it's in the sign of change, of, moving on, because Uranus means changing the system, changing the rules. And so you can see we've been in a flux of this, and it's squaring the planet that means change.
Right.
and all the things that are traditional. And so it's exacerbated that whole storyline, which is what everything has been about. And it comes tighter to its connection of its hard aspect.
And when does this begin?
Well, it ends at pretty much the beginning of next year, but it comes to what doesn't.
When does it start? Are we already in that?
Oh yeah, we've been in it. This is like the tighter past.
Okay, then we definitely don't like that because I think all of us feel kind of right now.
Well, look at September 14th through November 10th. Now we're gonna highlight a date in this entire thing that's gonna be pivotal because obviously it's November 8th, which is election day. So and everything's been change, government, conflict, everything, and so that gets stronger and stronger. So there's a resurgence of discourse that the midterms will represent, and we are looking at the past of our traditions and the way we're going in the future and how the systems are trying to change or what direction they're going into and who wants to go which way. Since Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, it is going to also have to do with what we call Earth issues, which are climate change, climate catastrophes. Seems to get worse and worse.
They're not though. Can I just say they're not getting worse? Arizona's been hot my whole life.
Here,
I keep hearing, but I'm just saying, there's always been earthquakes. There's always been, and there's this like fear mongering of what's going on.
It's the awareness.
I guess it's the awareness, but so somebody's running this agenda and making this an issue right now. It doesn't have to be this hard. It's being highlighted by Uranus. And then it's also when we look at our money systems going through our energy resources. What money?
Well, yeah. Well, that's just it. Uranus it's here today and then gone tomorrow. That is a Uranus dynamic. It's the rug being pulled out. Yeah. But like I always say in these dynamics, everything is cyclical.
Okay.
So, we had a recession back in, 2007, and then it came back. And this may be a little recession, or we don't know. That's the whole point. But always when we're in something that seems to be on a downward spiral for a while, the cycle tells you what to do.
Right.
It isn't about, oh my God, I've lost my 401k. It's like, no, it'll come back.
Right.
Because things do. Everything goes down, everything goes back up. That's how a tidal dynamic works naturally in nature. So
I was talking to Sophia about this. Young people haven't been through this before. We've been through it before.
Right.
And what I learned from 07, 08, where everything just came crashing down, is if you are able to just kind of sit back right now and be objective about what's going on, there are going to be people who didn't plan for this. They're going to lose homes. Their businesses will close. There will be people moving home for financial reasons. So you're going to see all the movement that happened leading up in the pandemic in those 2 years where everybody like moved and branched out. You're going to see a lot of those people move back to where they're from. But I told her, I said, now is a time where if you have cash or money, it's good for you.
And to save it.
Right. But also because people will get rid of things that are considered, more high end or some, I said you can buy it up. So there's like pros and cons to times like this as long as you're prepared. Am I right?
And that is to be objective to the cycle and how you can take advantage or not.
Right.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to show is if you can learn to read this energy and you've experienced it, and if parents would educate their kids on this so that they understand there are some upsides to these moments that they can take advantage of or recreate themselves.
Well, if one is focused so much on money, whether they're a Taurus or a Cancer or money consciousness, then that's all they think about.
Right.
And so that's the focus. The focus is more on fear of security and survival.
Right.
Because that's everyone's fear, So again,
brings things in perspective for young people for the first time.
Right.
Sure.
So, if you're a wild Sag or a wild Leo and you go out and buy fancy jewelry during a time like this, was that smart to do?
Right.
Unless
you got it at a discount.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. Like you just said, the opposite side of that is I have the money. Someone needs to get rid of a necklace that it's going to be half what it was worth originally.
Right.
So this is how it works.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Okay. So then we're going to go into, just to let you know, Mercury retrogrades from 9/11 to October 2nd. So, and it will be in Libra and then back into Virgo and then back into Libra. So look at you writing this down.
Yeah, this one I need
Listen to your old podcast. Mercury retrograde from September 11th to October 2nd. But it will be in Libra for the most part. Goes back briefly into Virgo and then we'll come back out into Libra on the 30th of October. But understand that a lot of legal issues, law issues, things regarding which are going on in the courts.
That's in Mercury retrograde or what's that?
Libra.
In Libra.
In Libra, yes. And in Virgo, because Virgo's judgment. So,
Is that the IRS coming for us?
Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah. Only if they need to. So
no, they don't. Shut up. Said no one ever.
No one wants to. Unless they made a mistake and want to give you money back. Does that ever happen?
That never happens. Come on.
So,
they save it for a rainy day.
So
Come on.
That's just the head up on the fall retrograde.
Okay, so that's going to be a little painful legal issues.
Well, it won't be for me because I was born with Mercury retrograde in Libra.
Yes. Oh, in Libra.
Yeah.
How come you didn't become a lawyer?
Because retrograde means I'm right brain more than left brain. I see people, and rather than analyze people, I have an awareness around them and I read them.
But you'd be a fantastic communicator, I would think. I know.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
What am I doing here?
You don't like conflict typically, though, so that would be hard for you.
No, I'm a pacifist by that nature.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. We've had this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so then we're going to go to Mars, and this is kind of significant because Mars is going to enter Gemini and be there for 7 months.
When does it enter?
It's going to enter on the 20th of August, and then it'll be there for 7 months into February. That's a long time for Mars to be in one sign because, it's going to retrograde back. It's going to, but it's the whole time it retrogrades, it's in Gemini. So the whole time it's in Gemini. So this is interesting because we're going to talk about action, okay? Forward action, taking action in our lives, which is Mars, and communication.
Right.
So communication and the action is going to be verbal attacks. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of yelling and screaming.
More yelling and screaming.
Yes, more yelling. More yelling.
No more political ads.
The news will be in conflict, verbal assaults, attack ads. Wait for attack ads for this cycle because it's all, and I hate attack ads. Can you just tell us what you're going to do instead of take down the other person?
Or they say what they did and they really didn't do anything at all.
Yeah. So then also scattered thoughts. So try and stay focused.
Yeah.
Don't try to do too many things at once. It's like your mind's all over the place.
So they're acting, reacting with neurotic behavior.
Yeah. And this is probably why when we get into the retrograde of Mercury that, calm the mind down. Look at yourself. Where you feel powerless in your life, that things are happening you have no control over.
Sure.
Look at what you do have control over in your life based on the information that's coming at you.
Okay.
And then it's also impulsive action. So don't jump into things because your head said, okay, you just need to do this. You need to think it through.
Okay.
So
that's
because
good advice.
Nature is to just like, I'm just going to do this. Well, if it involves other people or you'll regret it later.
Right.
Take your time.
Take your time.
Yeah, take your time.
Indeed.
But just know that, Mars in, Gemini is a very active, multiple energy, things going on all at once. It's like, I always use this in my readings, the plate spinner from the Ed Sullivan Show. There's like, 100 plates spinning on poles. Right. And we're waiting, running from one to the other, trying to keep them from falling down. That's
Joe's a Mars and Gemini.
Yeah, see? Yeah, So they're scattered,
Mm-hmm.
So we're more scattered for them. And then we're going to get into the pivotal point of the fall.
What's Mars in right now?
Mars right now, what's it in right now? It's in Taurus.
Taurus, okay.
Yeah.
Mars and Taurus has felt... okay.
Well, it's more about money.
Yeah.
So
I'm comfortable with that, though.
Yeah, right.
The whole neurotic part, not as comfortable.
Well, I mean, Mars and Taurus is more practical choices and decisions. All your decisions you're making should be practical.
Right.
Basic issues about food, your finances,
home,
your security, your survival issues. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. The pivotal point of the whole fall will obviously be November 8th, which is the midterm election. And so much on that day
Tell us what to expect.
Well, whether this is synchronistic or, it's just how things are supposed to come together.
Yeah.
Are we really in charge, or is this thing always just going to happen and sets us up for it?
Right.
We have a complete lunar eclipse on that day. And that means that the sun itself, along with Mercury and Venus, will be in Scorpio, obviously, because it's November 8th. And the moon, which opposes in a lunar eclipse, will be in Taurus conjunct the planet of Uranus. So here we have the greatest pull. And by the way, on top of this, that eclipse in opposition makes a hard right turn square over to Saturn and Aquarius. I can't get more explosive than that in that combination. They're all fixed signs. They're all fixed signs.
Wow.
And when someone's fixed and change is trying to take place, which is what's happening as we try and look at where we're going in our systems, who's leading, who's going to do this, how they're going to do it. It's absolutely, and since we've had Mars all through this time up till then, attacking, talking, and it seems like
so negative.
It seems violence would be obvious. Okay. It seems there, people.
Well, Scorpio's retaliation.
Well, and it is it's not good in terms of what can happen. So it's just a heads up on how you're going to prepare yourself for something like this, and really, keep yourself protected because it's rather volatile. I just, to me, it's like the culmination of the last 2 years of the conflict we've been having. And so it's like, what we had, which
could that come from another country, or is this just
it's all over the world, but it's, obviously we're going to only look at our country because it's affecting us in our personal lives. But when we have like the election of 2020, right. So this brings that to its culmination when you have a side that says it was stolen, it wasn't real, and then people going, he's not a real president.
Well, they got the one that they wanted, so they can enjoy that.
But the whole dynamic is all that conflict seems to want to hit ahead in the 2020 midterms, or 2022 midterms.
I mean, that's just typical politics, right? I mean, they just keep bringing things up that are friction.
But there's always this thing, and that's why I want to highlight this in terms of the change, is that we always expect the other party to take over. And then all these things where it's like, does this happen the way it always has? Because I always said it's always tradition versus progress.
But you said Scorpio can be transformation. It can be a good thing.
Well, it doesn't mean bad. It's just volatile. Okay, so volatile.
Well, all politics is volatile.
Exactly, but it seems to be ramped up quite a bit, and then it falls on a lunar eclipse in Scorpio Taurus.
It is a hyperbolic time politically. Yeah.
So it feels, Taurus is our foundation, and Scorpio is our transformation. So if you look at it in those elements, in those terms.
I'm trying to see the positives of Scorpio because the positives are really great and the negatives are really dark.
Exactly right. So you'll probably have both dynamics play out. But the positives are the best part of Scorpio because it means transformation.
Okay.
So it means to heal and move on, and not it's life versus death. So something must end in this dynamic. Right. Obviously, something will end because we come to a conclusion
now
of this last 2 years.
The president's a Scorpio with a full moon, born in a full moon in Taurus.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Don't you love it?
Yeah, because that's going to be painful for him.
Understand that everything's in order.
Yeah.
Because this is all happening in an order that we're not planning. It's being planned out. It's all how we respond.
Don't you all want a Tom at your house so you can just talk to him all the time about what's going on?
Well, I try to get you to look at the perspective objectively.
Yes, and I'm trying. I'm trying to see it from both sides, the transformation.
And on top of that, it's again, not what happens to you or what you feel powerless in. It's just you observing how will you let this affect your life, or how will you manage or adopt to whatever it is.
Right.
And you don't know the outcome because we don't know the outcome.
Or what do you want to now work to change?
Right, because there's so many possibilities.
Right.
But it has to do with how we manage our lives through it. And say, if it goes this way, what do I do? If it goes that way, what do I do? You kind of have to.
I think a lot of people are used to, like, we've all been through deaths in our life, or a lot of people divorces. They've been through upheaval. Mm-hmm. So we can navigate things like this.
We're old enough to know that.
Yeah, it's the people who were particularly sheltered that have never had to deal because other people took care of it for them that aren't going to handle this well.
Well, that's why when we talked about earlier, the millennial generation.
Right. That's what I was thinking of.
Well, because they don't know, whether they're very into politics or not. They don't seem to be. Right. But this is affecting them more than anyone else.
Yes. And they really have a vested interest in this for their children and their grandchildren.
I remember when I was 20 and 30s, I was not interested in politics at all.
Yeah, I've been watching it since when I was 20.
You went into law.
I know.
Come on, Allison.
I've been watching the news since I was a little girl. I'd sit down and put on 60 Minutes, and my mom just thought I was really weird.
I was doing interior design, and you were into law. Who's going to be paying attention? You are. So So, yeah.
So funny.
I mean, I am now because
Yeah.
I see the importance of it.
Right.
And I'm more interested now. But my sister, who's a, history government teacher, I can't not know about it because she's going to tell me all the time what's going on.
It's kind of handy.
It is handy. It is handy. But, those are the two subjects I could care less about in high school.
Fair enough.
Because, being a right brainer and creative and not interested in anything like that. I loved history because usually artistic souls like history.
Yeah.
But, not interested in how these things work because they didn't affect me in my 20s or early 30s.
Well, history also has astrological cycles, so it's a story, so that interests you.
The whole point.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So how are the holidays looking for
I didn't even look at it. I'm sorry. We'll do that in another thing. We'll go back and we'll break down as this starts to unfold and we get into November and see what happens. We'll do a podcast.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we're going to have to dress up in Halloween costumes again. Like we did that one YouTube that one year and do a fun Halloween podcast because everything is so heavy.
I know.
And it's why there are so many people on Instagram to see, the funny video clips or, people are searching for a way to process their stress and their angst and they don't know where to put it.
Well, I would say, be aware of the news, read lots of different things. Don't fit just one agenda. I don't. I look at all aspects of ideologies and make my own conclusion. Most people do not. They have their own and they want their information to come from that place.
Right.
When those places are going to be in a conflict with each other, it's not going to help at all. Because that's how it's going to look. They're going to become more extreme to each other. So rather than do your own research, read many different things, and people that isn't their job is to give you something you want to hear.
Sure.
And then as far as looking at your own life and what you can do, because most people, as we said earlier, feel powerless or helpless in their lives. And so look at where you aren't. And where you aren't, do something about it.
And, it comes down to basics often. What makes you feel good? What did you do as a little girl? Did you dance and you want to take some dance lessons now as a 44-year-old? They have those, do that.
Yes.
If you want to be close to your husband, take some ballroom lessons with him and spend some time with it. Like, what is your goal? Where do you want to be? And what brings you joy?
Well, it's funny. I did a reading very recently with a woman who I said, you'd be great at reading for children. She goes, I just finished writing a children's book. And she's early 50s and or late 40s, somewhere in that, generation where the shift starts to happen.
Sure.
And she's a Taurus, and everything's been about money and survival and, struggling and the typical Taurian dynamics. And so her creativity, which was very, very high, her modality of what she was interested in. She loved books. She loved stories. She worked in a library.
Yeah,
and I said, it was always there.
Yeah.
And so you found at this age in your life that you want to write children's books.
She's looked at the other ones and said, I can write better.
Oh, yeah.
I can write better than that.
And she was so self-sufficient in her life with as much Taurus as she had. And her relationships didn't work because she didn't know how to, compromise with someone else because no one would compromise with her. She was left on her own to do things by herself. And she said, my only problem is I'm not good at illustration. I said, then you're going to learn to find someone that will do that with you.
Right.
You'll find to have a
go to
relationship.
Go to Fiverr. Right. You can hire somebody there.
You'll get that. You're not alone in this. You can do this, but you're going to do your part of it and find the collaboration.
We have more resources at our fingertips right now than any other time in history. Where there's a will, there's a way. It all comes back to that.
But when the memory and the trigger is I'm alone in my life, you don't think of that. And it's so interesting how it just my way of looking at my life is I'm alone. And so trying to let her to know she's not was the goal.
Right.
You're not alone. There are resources. The minute you tap them, spirit will show up for you.
It's funny. I've always innately just known how to not be alone if I don't want to be alone.
Well, you chose to be an Aquarian. You like being alone.
I do like being alone. But if I go into a saloon in an area and it's a little dicey, I'll buy a drink on me. For everybody at the bar, which is usually like 5 or 6 bikers or people.
Right. Nice bars you're going to, Allison.
And then, hey, I'm an Arizona girl.
I know.
And then you've got as many friends as you possibly could need, and you have no idea how many times that has actually worked in my benefit. Sure. So if you don't want to be alone, go do something nice for someone. People are attracted to that.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
Right.
Yeah.
But not a biker bar. You'll never find me in one.
Okay. It's an Arizona thing, first of all, to day drink. It's just it's a thing we do. We're known for it.
Well, because you can't go outside in the summer for 6 months.
We're actually kind of laid back and like to enjoy life. But we're very cowboy. I mean, we've always had saloons. I mean, since the inception of cowboys. So it's just part of who we are growing up.
I know. I'm a transplant. I came from beach boy to cowboy town.
No, I know.
Sorry.
Well, as foreign as the saloon feels to you, those beach bars feel foreign to me.
Exactly.
So I totally respect that we vibe with where we're from. It's what we know.
Yeah, we adapt.
Well, I'm going to have you back on because we've got to go over some more astrology. Maybe I'll just bring you on for the full month of October.
Okay.
That could be good. I know my audience loves you, which is why you are number 99. Episode 99.
Bottles of beer on the wall. There's only one more to go.
Thank you for being my friend and a friend of the show.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
And thank you to all of you for listening around the world and calling into the Dead Life over the last 2 years. Tune in next Tuesday for my 100th episode. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.
Join us next week on The Dead Life. And don't forget to subscribe now to get every episode sent straight to your phone.